All right, peace. Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, give honor and praise to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov. Giving double honors to 7130 South Chicago that taught me this truth. Giving double honors to all the brothers and sisters that the Creator has awoken in his last days. With that being said, peace and shalom. All right, brothers and sisters, I want to go into a lesson today. We're going to entitle this lesson, Should We Be Keeping Hanukkah, right? Is Hanukkah a part of our customs and traditions, or is it something that we was worshiping towards the Creator from a righteous standpoint point of view? So, with no further ado, let's get to the lesson. We have First Maccabees. I'm going to start reading from the 41st verse. And it says, And everyone shall leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. It says, Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion and sacrificed idols and profaned the Sabbath, right? So what is happening is you having Antiochus, which was the king at that time, right? And I think Ptolemy was ruling too, but they was at odds with each other. But under Antiochus, he was forcing a lot of our ancestors to follow what you would call the traditions of the Greeks, the customs and traditions of the Greeks. And the customs and traditions of the Greeks is nothing but another form of the Babylonian mystery system that was established by Nimrod, right? So it says, Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion and sacrificed idols and profaned the Sabbath. For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land, and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and the festivals, and pollute the sanctuary and holy people, set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh, unclean beasts. That they shall also have their children uncircumcised, and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation. Right? So what's taking place is our ancestors is following the customs and traditions of the Greeks, to the end that they might follow the law, forget the law, and change all ordinances. It says, And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said he should die. In the self-same manner wrote he to the whole kingdom, and appointed overseers over all the people, commanding the cities of Yehudah to sacrifice city by city. Then many of the people were gathered unto them, to wit, every one that forsook the law, and so they committed evils in the land, and drove the Israelites in secret places, even whatsoever they could flee for secure. Because you had a lot of our ancestors, they was fleeing, right? They didn't want to follow the customs and traditions of the Greeks, right? So it says, now this is where it gets interesting, because we're going to start reading from the 4th chapter of the book of Maccabees. Now the 54th verse of the 1st chapter of the book of Maccabees read as such. Now the 15th day of the month of Caslu, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar, and builded idol altars throughout the cities of Judah on every side. Now, this is key in what it is that we're talking about. So, pay close attention to the 54th verse. And burnt incense at the doors of their houses in the streets. And when they had written in pieces the books of the law, which they found, they burnt them with fire. So this is a key thing too. 54 and 56 are key verses in what it is that we're talking about, because not only are they setting up idol worships in the temple, right? They setting up the abomination of desolation. But they're going to take a lot of our history and they're going to burn it with fire, right? So it says, and whosoever was found with any of the books of the testament, or if any consented to the law, the king's commandment was that they should put him to death. Thus did they by their authority unto the Israelites every month, to as many was found in the cities. 59 is another key verse. Now the 5 and the 20th day of the month, they did sacrifice upon the idol altars, which was upon the altar of Elohim, right? So these are key verses, 59, 56, and 54, right? So let's take a look. Let's go into the 4th chapter of the book of Maccabees, right? First Maccabees, the 4th chapter. And I'm going to start reading. I'm going to start at 36th verse. Then said Judas and his brethren, behold, our enemies are confitted. Let us go up to cleanse and dedicate the sanctuary. So this is 3 years later that they're going to dedicate the temple and things of this nature. And also, you got to understand that we had like high priests and all this type of stuff. A lot of that stuff was destroyed after the Greeks came in and basically forced us to take on their way of life. You had some Israelites that consented willfully, whether they were scared or, you had Israelites that willfully did it because that's what they wanted to do. And then you had some Israelites that fled from them, right? And fought against them. And see, that's who Judas Maccabee is, because his father, which was, I think, Mattathias or Matthias, you know, his father was a warrior too. You know what I'm saying? So this is them. They having a triumph against the Greeks, and they wanted to rededicate the temple, right? But check it out though. What a lot of us is not really paying attention to. So let's look at this. Then said Judas and his brethren, behold, our enemies are confitted. Let us go up to cleanse and dedicate the sanctuary. Upon this, all the hosts assembled themselves together and went up into Mount Zion. It says, when they saw the sanctuary desolate and the altars profaned and the gates burned up and the shrubs growing in the courts, as in the forest on one of the mountains, yea, and the priest's chambers poured down, they rent their clothes and made great lamentation and cast ashes upon their head. And it says, and fell down flat to the ground upon their faces, and blew an alarm with the trumpets and cried toward heaven. Then Judas appointed certain men to fight against those that were in the fortress until he had cleansed the temple. It says, so he chose priests of blameless conversation, such as had pleasure in the law, who cleansed the sanctuary and bare out the defiled stones into an unclean place. Now, as you can see, they're trying to clean up the temple, right? So it says, by getting rid of the unclean things that's in the temple. So it says, who cleansed the sanctuary and bare out the defiled stones into an unclean place. And when as they consulted what to do with the altar of burnt offerings, which was profane, they thought it best to pull it down, lest it should be a reproach to them, because the heathen had defiled it. Talking about the Greeks. Wherefore they pulled it down and laid up the stones in the mountain of the temple in a convenient place, until there should come a prophet to show what should be done with them. Then they took the whole stones according to the law and built a new altar according to the former. And it says, and made up the sanctuary and the things that were within the temple, and hollowed the courts. And it says, they made also holy vessels, and to the temple they brought the candlesticks and the altars of burnt offerings of incense and tables. And see, like the candlesticks was things that, we lit candles and stuff like that, of what they would call the menorah. So it says, upon the altar they burned incense, and the lamps that were upon the candlesticks they lighted, that they might give light in the temple. And it says, furthermore, they set the loaves upon the table and spread out the veils and finished all the works what they had begun to make, right? Now this is where it get kind of interesting. It says, now on the 5 and 20th day of the 9th month. Now, according to the Hebrew calendar, I think the springtime starts around, the month of March, right? But if you count from April all the way up, you're going to count April to December. You're going to count April 9 times. It's going to give you December. So from April up into December is nine months. So when they say now on the 5 and 20th day of the 9th month, which is called the month of Caslu, in the 148th year, they rose up bedtimes in the morning, and offered sacrifice according to the law upon the new altar of burnt offerings which they had made. But what I want to do is I want to look at a quick scripture. 1 second. Remember, they was away from the temple for like 3 years. And a lot of the things that they had got according to worship and the Creator from the righteous sense, they would get it from the priesthood. Let's look at this. Let's look at something. This is Isaiah the 14th chapter. And I'm going to start reading 13 and 14. For thou hast said in thy heart, I will ascend into heaven, and I will exalt my throne above the stars of Elohim. Who is the stars? That's the nation of Israel. Now let's look at this, right? Because this is the overthrow of the nation of Israel, because this is the Babylonians coming in and conquering the nation of Israel, because they're being motivated by the adversary to do this, right? So it says, for thou hast said in thy heart, I will ascend into heaven, and I will exalt my throne above the stars of Elohim, and I will sit upon the congregation. It says, I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north, right? And I will ascend above the heights of the clouds, and I will be like the Most High. So what does that mean? That means that they're going to conquer the nation of Israel, and they're going to set up a worship system, and they're going to mix and mingle our history or our customs and traditions with their customs and traditions. And we're going to be thinking that we're worshiping the Creator, but in actuality, we're worshiping the customs and traditions of the adversary. And see, we're going to see a glimpse of that dealing with the Maccabees, right? Because we're back at the 4th chapter of the book of Maccabees in the 52nd verse. It says, now on the 25th day of the 9th month. Now, like I said, when you count from April, I think 9 times, you're going to get December, right? So the 9th month is quote unquote December. So it says, which is called the month of Caslu. In the 148th year, they rose up that time in the morning and offered sacrifice according to the law upon the new altar of burnt offerings which they had made. It says, look, at what time and what day the heathen had profaned it. Talking about how the Greeks came in and they started to, they set up the abomination of desolation, right? It says, even in that was it dedicated with songs, citharns, and harps and cymbals. Well, let's go back to the 1st chapter, right? Let's look at this. It says, now on the 15th day of the month of Caslu, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar, and builded idol altars throughout the city of Judah on every side, right? 56. And they had rent in pieces the books of the law which they found, and they burnt them with fire. So when they set up the abomination of desolation, right, which is the customs and traditions of the Greeks, they took a lot of our stuff, like the Torah and stuff like that. They destroyed it, because if you go back into the history of the book of Josephus, it talks about how Demetrius wanted to translate our history into the Greek, see? And this is where you get that stuff, called the Septuagint and all this stuff, even with the early church fathers. All of them, see, because they set up the abomination of desolation also, and and what you would call the modern day or the ancient Romans did it too, right? Because an abomination is something that's against the Creator, and desolation is basically destruction, right? So right here it says, now the 15th day of the month of Caslu in the 145th year, they set up abomination of desolation upon the altar and built idol altars throughout the cities of Judah on every side. Now let's go down to 59. It says 58. It says, thus did they by their authority unto the Israelites every month to as many as were found in the city. Now it says, now the 25th day of the month. What month? What are they going to be talking about? They got to be talking about the 9th month. See, it's because that was the decree. That was the festival or the decree of the king. See, that was a part of the abomination of desolation. They did sacrifice upon the idol altars, which was upon the altar of Elohim, right? So let's look at this, right? This is John 10:22. And at the footnote it says Jesus asserts his deity. Now, when you invoke that name of Jesus, you're talking about who? The man that was born on December the 25th, that was born of Immaculate Conception, right? He's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He's Yahweh or Yah or Yahweh in the flesh. See? So that's when they talk about Jesus asserts his deity. Check this out. And it was at Jerusalem, the Feast of Dedication, which was, and it says, and it was winter. What is the writer conveying to the reader, brothers and sisters? The Christians, the Catholics, or whatever you want to call them, they all Catholics. But when they put this book together, they understood exactly what they was doing. So when we talking about dead of winter, right? It says, now on the 15th day of the month of Caslu in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar and built idol altars throughout the cities of Judah on every side. Now the 25th day of the month, they did sacrifice upon the idol altars, which was upon the altars of Elohim. But who are they? What are they doing? What God are they invoking? Let's look at this. Let's turn to Ezekiel, the 8th chapter. Ezekiel, the 8th chapter, the 12th verse. Then said he unto me, Son of man, hast thou seen what the ancient of Israel do in the dark, every man in his chamber of his imagery? For they say, Yahweh saith us not, Yah hath forsaken the earth. He said also unto me, turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations that they do. Then he brought me to the door of the gates of Yahweh's house, which was towards the north. Behold, there sat woman weeping for who? Tammuz. It's because Tammuz is the one that was basically born on December the 25th, immaculately conceived. This is all through history. Some people say, well, back in those times, we celebrated Christmas on the 23rd. It don't matter. You still practicing the traditions of these heathens. So when the Greeks set up the abomination of desolation, this is who they was worshiping. But they probably called them by different names. They didn't call them Tammuz back then. Right? So when we go here, it says Jesus assert his deity. What are they saying? That Yahshua or Jesus is the God of the nation of Israel. And that he was the one that we were sacrificing to. But that is the traditions of the Greeks. It's because you can't even translate Yahshua into Jesus. You just can't do it. So what is the philosophy every time you talking about Jesus is the Messiah? He was born on December the 25th. He was immaculately conceived. He is the God of the nation of Israel. See, he was with Moses in the burning bush. And that's why we went to, I think it's the 14th chapter of the book of Isaiah, when it talks about how the adversary is going to be looking like the Most High. So let's go to the 4th chapter of the book of First Maccabee. It says, now on the 25th day of the 9th month, which is December, which is called the month of Caslu, in the 148th year, they rose up that time in the morning and offered sacrifices according to the law upon the new altar of the burnt offerings which they had made. So what's taking place? They coming in, but Judas and them, they thinking that they worshiping the Creator, because mind you, they wasn't in Jerusalem. They was vagabonds. They was running around trying to escape death. So they had been without a sacrifice and all this type of stuff for like 3 years. And mind you, there's a certain type of way that you have to do certain things. See, we doing a lot different today in this captivity. The priests only went into the holiness of holies. The masses didn't do that. See, they had to get the information from the high priest. But during this time, everything is in disarray. So this is why they don't really know what is clean from what is clean from unclean, because there's really no leadership like that. The leadership is confused. See, the leadership is confused too. So when they sacrificing, they're thinking that they're worshiping the Creator. But in actuality, they not. They're still following, because the residue of the heathens was still in the temple. So it says, look at what time and what day the heathen had profaned it. Even in that was it dedicated with songs, cisterns, and harps and cymbals. It says, then all the people fell upon their faces, worshiping and praising Yah of heaven, who had given them good success. So when they're in the temple, they thinking that because they doing it sincerely, but they're still practicing the traditions that was established by the Greeks. This is why they dealing with stuff on the 25th day and stuff like that has nothing to do with the nation of Israel's history. And so they kept the dedication of the altar 8 days and offer burnt offering with gladness and sacrifice of deliverance and praise. Now check this out. They decked also the forefront of the temple with crowns of gold, and with shields and gates and chambers they renewed and hanged doors upon them. Now check this out. Let's go to Jeremiah, the 10th chapter. Book of Yirmiyahu, 10th chapter. Alright, check this out. It says, the book of Yirmiyahu, 10th chapter, 1st verse. Hear ye the word which Yah speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. Thus saith Yah, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. For the customs of the people are vain. One cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen with an axe. And it says, they deck it with silver and gold, and fasten it with nails and with hammers. But check this out in the 4th verse. The 57th verse of the 4th chapter. They decked also the forefront of the temple with crowns of gold. That's the same thing that's in Jeremiah the 10th chapter. It's just worded different. See? So a lot of the stuff that they was doing, they still was dealing with the residue of the customs and the traditions of the Greeks during that time. And see, we still doing that today. It's because you got to look at our history just like we will be in the temple, right? You got the holiness, you got all the holy vessels, you got the Torah and things of this nature. But when the Romans and stuff, they come in and they set up the abomination of desolation of Greeks and all them other people, what are they doing? They're doing what? They profaning our books, our history. Instead of us calling on Yah, which is the firstborn of our creation, we're calling on who? We calling on Jesus. See? Immaculately conceived. And they do what? They mix and mingle their culture and our culture. Let's look at this. Let's turn to Acts, the 11th chapter, and then we should be done. I think Acts, the 12th chapter. I'm going to show you destroying history, right? See, look at this. Yeah, 11 and 26 verse. And the disciples were called Christians first in Antioch. The nation of Israel would have never set up a religion called Christianity, brothers and sisters. Easter. Easter is in the Bible. Check this out. I think it's the 16th chapter of the book of Acts, or the 20th chapter. You see, brothers and sisters, one second. Check this out. 16th chapter of the book of Acts. Then came he to Derbe and Lystra, and behold, a certain disciple was there named Timotheus. I think this is. No, this ain't it. I think it's the 20th chapter. Okay. 20th chapter of the book of Acts. And we sailed away from, it says, and we sailed away from Philippi after the days of unleavened bread. Now, why do they keep putting this in here before the Passover? Because they are promoting what you would call Good Friday, brothers and sisters. Let's look at this. And came unto them to Troas in 5 days, where we abode 7 days. And it says, and upon the first day of the week, when the disciples came to break bread, Paul preached unto them. So when they talking about the first day of the week, what are they talking about? They talking about the resurrection day. They talking about the resurrection day, brothers and sisters. So the point that I'm making is this. When we're coming back into our history, there's a lot of things that's in our history that has been influenced. It's because the Christians put the word the first day of the week because they're teaching the world that the Messiah rose on the first day of the week, which is Easter. See? So really what they should say is we sailed away from Philippi after the days of unleavened bread and came unto them to Troas in 5 days and were abode 7 days. And it should say upon the first day of Easter, when the disciples came to break bread, Shaul preached unto them, because now what they doing? They acknowledging Easter as the Sabbath, brothers and sisters. So this stuff that happened with Judas and them is the same thing that's happened to us too. We're fighting a war just as well, but our war is more spiritual. We're not physically fighting against the so-called white man. Some of us do, but what I'm saying is that we're coming back into the knowledge itself, and a lot of things that has been added to our history, we think that is of the Creator, but in actuality, it's of the adversary. So with that being said, peace and shalom.